Most virtual hires fail in the first 30 days, not because of the person. I'm izaiahbarba and I run a 7-figure wholesale real estate company, and this is the exact onboarding checklist we use. It's role-based, you can outsource it, and it's built to run without you. Let's dive into it. So here's our process using Notion for onboarding employees. And so you can see that we have different processes per different position, as when you are, for example, hiring an admin person or onboarding them. Doing an admin person versus a salesperson is a whole different process. There's different platforms that they need access to, there's different training, and so you want different processes depending on the position. So we have that here in Notion, and this is synced to our templates. And so I'm going to walk you guys through an actual process of onboarding, for example, a salesperson in our company. And so this is tailored towards wholesale real estate. However, this can be applied, and you guys will get a lot from just the different things that we are doing when we're onboarding. It can apply to any business. So there's some things that are specific for wholesale. However, it can apply to other businesses as well. So to dive into it, some of this will be blurred out because this is our actual process for onboarding and promoting and offboarding and all of that. And so this video is just going to be tailored towards onboarding. And so I'm going to click new here, and we'll have this template as well down below where you guys can copy this and follow along. So I'm going to click new. And actually, before I click new, I'm going to grab the template. So I'm going to say I'm going to onboard a disposition agent, which is a sales rep in our company that sells our deals on the back end. And so here it is. It creates a template, and now I'm going to name it. So let's just say this is a new person. We'll say John Doe. And I would go through the process. So this is a checklist of all the things that are needed to properly onboard them. And it's amazing. I highly recommend doing this because you can easily delegate the onboarding process when you approach it this way. And so I'm going to make this a full screen, and I'm just going to focus on John Doe in this example, and I'm going to go through the onboarding process here. So I'm going to click this right here. So we've color-coded different responsibilities for who is doing what in the checklist. So I'm going to unsync this. Now that it is unsynced, I'm going to go through the steps that are required to onboard this person. And so brown is our admin assistant, purple is our disposition assistant. So we have different assistants doing different things. Blue is the disposition manager. And then as the owner, once you're in that position, you'll see who's responsible for what, and you could easily delegate this. So at first I was doing all of this, and then as I built a team, I gave different responsibilities to different team members. And so let's go through it. So I'm going to unsync it. I just click complete. Add employee's hiring card to this Notion card. And so what that means is that we create a homepage for them, and I have a different video on why we do that. But we basically create a virtual office for them to have all their logins and all their information all in one spot. And so we would want to put it into this card. So I would just say I'll just say if this were a random person's name, we'll just say at Mara, for example, and then you could have her homepage be right here, and so it's all centralized. Very cool process there. So that's what that step it is. Most likely not needed for a lot of you guys if you guys aren't using Notion. So number 3 here is sending an email to see if they would accept a position. So this is where you'd send them an offer to see if they would accept. And then once you send that, and this would probably be different for every position, so you can have a template tailored towards that position. And then you just click complete. And then next is sending an employment agreement and an NDA. So tailored towards that position, you would just have steps for that. So have them sign it, add their contact information, give them a call, and let them know they got the position. So here's steps there. And you can see that the manager is doing this step. And next is making sure we set proper expectations on the following. So when you onboard somebody, they should know exactly how to be successful in that position. So I would paint them the perfect picture of what that person is doing and what you'd want them to do in that position, and set the expectation up front. And in a perfect world, get them to sign off in writing so they understand what's going on. Additionally, you want to be very clear on what the company specific expectations are. So how you operate, what are your core values, what is good, what is bad, and some of the things you think would be self-explanatory. However, it doesn't hurt to just lay it all out there. So I'd recommend doing that, and also let the person that you're onboarding like where the company is going. So because if they don't know your goals, then they aren't able to help you achieve that, right? They want to be able to actually see where your target is and where you're looking to go. So you want to lay everything out there, set the expectations, and ideally get in writing if possible. Same idea with availability. Does being punctual, does that matter to you a lot? So everything laying out there clear, and the manager should be doing this. And additionally, communication. A big thing for us is if you are away from your desk, as we are a virtual company, so through Slack, we want them to change their status to let us know, or at least let the manager know, if they're not the manager themselves, that they are away. So communication is a massive thing for us, and setting all these expectations up front. I recommend creating a document saying all the things that you'd like to see in ChatGPT, and then having it create a document and send it out to them. So this is a massive thing I can't recommend enough to do. Next is creating an email for them. So that's simple enough. And the reason why I like to create an email for them rather than them using their own personal email is you can have control of all of the platforms and logins and everything that they're doing in that email. So very easy process for that. What we do is we use Squarespace. So this will be blurred out because this is our actual domain here. But you would go to the Squarespace account, and this might be different. It could be like GoDaddy or whatever the case is, and this could be a whole separate video in itself, but you click on the domain, you Google Workspace, and you just add a user and enter the candidate's first and last name. So if you've created a website, you should be able to create an email. And then that is the process. And then next is you complete that and then add to company platforms. So this will be different depending on your business, but you add them to all your platforms. So that would be the steps here. So we have Slack, we have Talent MLS, which is our onboarding process. We have Notion, which is our way for them to see all the information on how to be successful in that position. So that's what we use Notion for. And it's also, we use it for task tracking and a variety of different things. And then Dialpad is our call software. So you just want to onboard them. So our assistant's onboarding them to all of our spots. And once they complete, they do these checkboxes. And then next is sharing access to different Notion pages, depending on their position. And so this is different, per position. And the next is sending them the email with their login information. So you created the email above, but now you have to send them the email with the login information to their personal email or whatever email they're using. So you have the email template there. And then you want to send them an invite on Google Calendar to their new email to go over everything. So that's when you get the chance to go over their expectations and making sure they're actually set up. So just to wrap this up, you are sending the offer, and then you basically wait. Once they accept the offer, then you're going to do this back-end stuff of getting them access to all these platforms. And a big thing is when you are adding them to these different company platforms, I recommend giving access to that company email you created, not their personal, to that company email, because it lets you have control if things aren't go awry. So you're sending them email with the login information. Amazing. You're going over everything. And then now we do the same thing. We have another, we have a process where we actually just have them watch all the videos for our certain platforms. So we simply use our CRM. And then next, our admin assistant is updating the books. So adding to the finances of if there's payroll. So we all see what's going on there. So we're using Notion to track that. So there's that. And then creating a reminder for a 30-day check-in, which I'll get into later, but there's different check-ins and different phases depending on how far they are with us. That's how we look at it. Because you don't want a situation where you're doing all this work and onboarding them, getting them all access to everything, and then they leave the first week, right? So how can you stagger in a way where you're giving them enough for them to be successful, and then as you know they're going to be a long-term fit, you eventually give them everything. So the goal is to phase that out, and that's what we found to be most efficient. So you create a reminder, which we'll get into later, and then the following position. This is more just for me personally, but making sure the video, it basically has a video going over the SOP, their homepage and all that. And then lastly, this is just more tactical stuff for our platforms. And then lastly is adding their bank account information. So we have that, and then getting W-9 signed if they are an independent contractor. And so our assistant is sending that over. And then so the next 3 days for this position, they're watching videos on our onboarding platform, Talent MLS, and they're reviewing our SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, which is a document saying how to be successful in the position. Every single thing that they should know is in that document. So that is the onboarding process for this position. Next is there's check-ins. So this is another phase. There's a 7-day check-in once they've passed initial onboarding stages. So we share them with the meetings where they're most relevant. So say they've hit and this could be different, by the way. Some of these things could go to the onboarding section. Some of these could be later on. It's depending on how you run your business. So I'm just sharing what we do for this position in our current business. So you get their notification set up. Ideally, this would most likely be an onboarding thing. This is something specific to us. And then add to Google Calendar, so making sure they have all the meetings, which is already up here, so this could be a little bit more organized. And then keeping track of their KPIs. And so a lot of this stuff actually could be in the onboarding section. Next, though, is if we were to promote them, you would, and this is way later down the line, so this is actually realistically should be way over here. But if we were to promote, though, because I've opened this, we record what the promotion entailed, so we see where they were at, how much their amount raised to, and you could promote not just by money, but you also can give them a different title, and then you want to see that timeline though, and keep track of that, because then you can easily see and walk them through what that promotion looked like, and basically show them how far they've come. And then you want to send them an agreement, and then ideally, in a perfect world, if you have a team, you want to make that announcement, right? Create that camaraderie, which is big for the culture if someone gets promoted. And we have different best practices for promoting. That'll be a different video. So to finish this off, though, there's a 30-day check-in process where we want to make sure that they are hitting all the KPIs. So we have a reminder to ourselves, hey, are they actually hitting the KPIs? If there's KPIs needed for that position, are they doing what is required to be successful? We add their birthday in, because now, and through Birthday Bot, which is, we have another video regarding that, we get their bank account information. We probably might do that in the onboarding section. However, if it's after 30 days that we're going to pay them, then we'd get their bank account information. We get a headshot for them, right? Because like in this example, you wouldn't want to get a headshot of the employee, do all the things, and ideally you do this up front, right? But you don't really know how well they're going to be, and you could do all these stuff. They could do amazing in the hiring process. However, you really know their true colors once they're in your company. And so we found we don't want to spend money for a headshot and do that whole process if they are not a good fit. So we give time and to basically have them prove themselves. Hey, they're a good fit. Cool, we're gonna spend money and invest in them. So this is a balancing. It's not one or the other. It's how much do you do and when do you do it. So then next is having employees set the goals, and this could be in the onboarding section as well, because we have it after a 30-day check-in for this position. We add them to the talent software section, make sure they create a voicemail, and we add them to the website, and then we kind of do all this stuff for their goals and stuff. And then we get their emergency contact information, which we could do right off the bat. So that's something that we could do initially. And then lastly, 90-day check-in. And this could all be upfront. You could just do all this stuff onboarding too. This depends on where you're at as in your company. But we send them like a swag bag, be like when it has your company's actual advertisement, so apparel and stuff like that, so they can market for you in that capacity. You could buy them a mouse or a monitor. This is for a virtual environment, so giving them all that stuff. And this is as we are our company's still growing, we do these things once they've proven themselves that they are going to be a long-term fit. We invest more in them to them. But obviously, if they need this right off the bat, then we're going to give it to them right off the bat. So this is using your discretion there. And then another thing that we like to do, very nuanced, is that we use NotebookLM, and we get assessments for that. We have the new Clifton Strengths, which is just a personality assessment, and a few other different assessments. And we have them upload that to NotebookLM, which is a way to consolidate all of that information, and then they can ask questions about themselves, and we could see how they operate. So they can learn about themselves and how they work with different team members based off of these assessments, because it extracts all the information, and we can tailor it towards learning how to best to work as a team and working with them specifically. So kind of a cool thing that we've done as well. We do that after 90 days because these assessments cost. So the big theme here is the more we invest in them more as they prove themselves. That's kind of why we have different check-ins in the onboarding process. So that is what that looks like when it comes to onboarding, and all this information that we're doing, that we're getting throughout, we are putting into this card. So just to show you what that actually looks like, let's grab, for example, we'll just use John Doe to actually fill it out. So our admin assistant right now is Mara. So we've said if she's completed her task, she just does a little check mark. If I completed my task, or the distribution manager completed their task, they do a check mark. Did we do the check-ins? Let's just say we did all that stuff. The sales manager did their side, and that's more for the acquisition position, so I'm not going to dive into that. And then the lead gen supervisor, right, for hiring a cold caller, they would check off this box. So different managers have different boxes that they would check. So that's not applicable for this process, so I'm not going to click it. And a reminder, I can just do a reminder here, but I'm not going to do a reminder. And when they start, let's just say they started on the 14th, so now we can easily see what's going on there. If they ended, we can do an end date. And then their agreement we would put here, their signed SOP we put here, and their email, and then their information. So now you have one spot with all their information, and rather than trying to find it, it's a very organized, centralized way to onboard somebody. And you could delegate it very quickly because it's just a matter of a team member or someone just following the checklist of what is needed to onboard them. And then you could just have a video going over the checklist. But that is the process. So here it is, and you can see from this view, okay, cool, our assistant completed this, who's doing it, here's the person, here's her name, we're onboarding them. Okay, we finished all of our steps, here's the start date, amazing, their information, their email, and all of that. And you can do all this for free through Notion. And lastly, if you guys would like, I also have the same process for offboarding. So all the best practices I want to do for offboarding, which is another way to say firing somebody, that whole process we have as well. So drop a comment if you'd like to see that, or I may actually do another video as well on that if you guys are interested. If you got any value out of this, please subscribe and drop a comment. This channel is where I show real estate operators how to scale businesses through systems, AI, and organization using wholesale real estate as the proving ground. Click all the links below for all the resources I have to offer. Thank you.